The two ordinary hosts of this podcast are not professionals on parapsychology, extraterrestrials, cryptozoology, nor would they describe themselves as religious or prone to superstition. They'd also like to make it known that this show is not intended for children or those with sensitive sensibilities. Please listen at your own discretion. And remember, the truth is often anecdotal.
Historically, humans have proven to be resilient survivors in even the harshest of conditions. However, some struggles can drive even the most civilized of persons to commit atrocities. Jealousy, greed, envy, and hunger have proven how delicate we truly are and how close any of us are to breaking. Among the hushed whispers of northern Algonquin people, such strong emotions could literally change a man into something much more villainous. Whether it be a spirit that possesses one to perform cannibalism or a monster born from the desperate act itself, we are of course speaking about the infamous Wendigo. The name itself comes in many forms, but can roughly translate to winter cannibal, evil that devours, or simply owl. Hello, listeners. I am Mr. R.
And I'm Mr. X.
Just a paranormal dudes.
Reading paranormal stories.
Mr. X.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a Wanhammer?
A Wendigo? No.
Yeah.
No, I have not. In fact, as far as this creature goes, I'll say creature because I've seen a lot of posts saying not to consider it a cryptid.
Right.
I'm not as familiar with this one as I am with the skinwalker, which I'm not too familiar with either, so...
Which it turns out.
Yeah, different tribes, completely different sides of the country, I imagine. But yeah, no, I'm excited to dive into this one and maybe learn something.
So you're actually going to learn quite a bit. I did a little dive, not a deep dive, but a little dive on these things. It should be said near the top of the show is that we're going to be saying this word. And according to its own folklore, to say it is to like draw it towards you.
Well,
but
worse for you because you're closer to the mountains, whereas I live in an urban setting. So
that's true, but I'm nowhere near Eastern Canada or
like
Pennsylvania.
Appalachia.
Right. So it's going to take a while unless they get maybe a Spirit Airlines flight.
Yeah.
And then that's a whole new thing to worry about. So, Mr. X, when it comes to the physical description of a Wendigo, there are conflicting reports, right?
Yeah.
Simply, I'm sure you looked this up as well, but the modern depiction is thanks to Hollywood.
The movie that they made?
Right, in the 2001 Larry Fessenden film.
Okay, never seen it.
No one really did, but it did popularize the deer skull Wendigo image. That's not a thing. But
okay.
If you go on to any kind of forum to read Wendigo stories, all of them include a deer skull. And you know what? Maybe a collected fear can birth a creature like that. But I mean, there's nothing within the mythology that would suggest that it has a deer's skull as a head.
Just people ruining everything indigenous, huh?
Yeah, it's such a shame.
Well,
but as your resident white guy, I'm gonna go first.
Okay, yeah.
It should be said. I'm sorry. I'll go back to the man beast's physical descriptions. Often include being tall and or giant with an emaciated form, usually humanoid, long limbs, terrible claws, chewed or missing lips, which I thought was interesting because they have such an insatiable hunger that they eat the flesh that's around their mouth. Or yellow or red burning eyes. So there's that. And the reason it is not considered a cryptid is because these creatures were once human. Not a species of animal that has yet to be scientifically, found. You know what I mean?
I think I kind of came to that conclusion from your intro as well.
Right. Okay. My first story is awful, And normally I would editorialize this to kind of make it easier for myself to read or for the listener to hear, but I did not do that, and I apologize. It is from r/Wendigo 5 years ago, from a user named Felix Grizzly. The title is Who Wants to Hear My Wendigo Story? And after reading it, I did not. My BF and I get off work around 10 and 10:30, so we grocery shop at work. Work don't close till midnight. We were headed home. We take the cuts. On our way home, we saw a slender but muscular person running naked across the road like an animal on all fours. The more we stared, the less human it looked. Muscular thin legs, hair fur running down its butt, down to the calves. It was a curve next to a canal, so as we turned, seen it, and our light beam shined on it, our brights were on, and my lights shined on the orchards it ran into. Those trees were leafless and apart, so we were able to see how it ran into the trees. Both my BF and I saw it, and both agreed it was no human. No monkey, no other animal, just a fucked up creature. I recently told a friend, and she told me it was a Wendigo. We live in Central Valley in California, and this was one of the weirdest encounters we've had. Okay,
were you having a stroke there?
Man, I gotta tell you, I tried to read that out loud at work when I first found it, and it's a mess. But I mean, like, the story's there. It's just bad.
Yeah, it's that California lingo, I guess.
It's gotta be.
See, I found this story too, and I read through the whole thing, and I was like, there's no way. I'd have to editorialize it. But kudos for your getting through it. So this one was from what, 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago.
It has about 30 comments or so. Oh my gosh, all the...
No, read that one. Read that one. Read the one that says not a skinwalker.
Oh my god. Let's see. Hold on. There's one right here that's like, if I were you, I'd pack up and go to Mexico. Even as a skin wall, I mean, person who isn't scared easily, Wendigos aren't something to mess with. It's like they cut off the word skinwalker. And
narratively, it's like, even as a skin, but like, it doesn't read that way.
Yeah. So that's something I came across when looking up these stories, is that they all seem so tailored to fit like the mythos of this thing, and it's mostly like teenagers, right? They're like, I'm 13 to 15 and this happened to me exactly, and it's just, the screechings, the tall slender creatures. A lot of them have the deer head. Let's see, this one says not a Wendigo, just an average California man.
Clearly, was he eating avocado toast?
I've seen that comment a lot in these stories too. It's just like, nah, that is just a dude. Wendigo Skinwalker, I haven't seen it, but I know what a Wendigo. There's a game that there's someone lost and trying to hunt down a Skinwalker. He has a gun to shoot it.
Wow. God, if this podcast teaches anyone anything, it's that they should stay in fucking school.
Or at least just read more.
I really enjoy the gatekeeping on this particular subject. No other subject that we've talked about has this level of like bitter, probably white people. Like, what is this? This comment just says Wendigos don't live in California.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Wendigos don't live. They're not real. So stop it.
Also, I might get into this after we cover a couple more stories, but I also see another very common comment among all of these stories. I should say too, on Reddit, there's not a whole lot of these stories. I've had to like scour other subreddits and stuff, but if you go to like the Wendigo subreddit or Skinwalker subreddit, the most recent ones are from like 2 years ago. Like, people don't use these very often, and it's probably because of the fact that like all these stories just kind of sound the same. There might be like a few little differences and stuff. I literally came across one story that was like, I think I'm being chased by a skinwalker because I was researching it and I heard some creepy stuff. And so I asked my parents and they said I was probably just paranoid. That was the whole story. And I was like, all right. I guess I could see why these subreddits aren't surviving very much. I also tried just Googling stories, and all I could get were like the origin stories of like the legends and stuff, no like personal accounts. So we're just stuck with Reddit for this one. But yeah, let me go ahead and just jump into my first one.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And I have some issues. Hold on, sorry. What the hell are you looking at? I have Crowley sitting next to me, and he's just staring at the roof in my room.
Good.
And it's probably just like a fly or something, but...
while Mr. X deals with a cat, I want to give everyone a fun fact out there. In the Proto-Algonquin word that they think, because we don't know this for a fact, where we think we were pulling the sound Wendigo from, is we-ntekowa. Okay? And that we-ntekowa, that means owl, and I don't know why those are associated. I think it has something to do with the giant yellow eyes, but I can't find any concrete evidence as to why that's a thing. Like, there's a bunch of other, let's see, the Ojibwe people have a word that's extremely similar to Wendigo. The Cree people, they had Weetikau, but like there's probably 15 to 20 different words that all relatively sound the same, but the alleged earliest term was roughly translated to owl.
Well, from what I understand, owls are evil.
Hey, another thing to learn from this is that people don't read enough, and owls are bad.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you seen an owl?
I grew up with a very superstitious family of hunters, and it was actually extremely bad luck to see an owl during the daytime. In Texas, there's not a ton of, you know what, I'm going to say there's not a ton of owls. There probably are, but they're not incredibly populated in certain areas. So I think in real life, I've seen, I'm going to say 6. I'm going to say 6 owls.
Yeah, I was going to say about 6 or so. Because in Florida, there's a lot of forested areas, at least when I was living there. And yeah, you hear them and see them all the time. And then I don't think there were any in Puerto Rico, but in Texas, I've seen quite a few too. Even here in Colorado, I've seen them like flying around residential areas. And so like if you have a small dog, don't walk it at night. Yeah, because I remember one time I was walking at night. Someone was walking their dog, and I literally look up, and there was an owl following us the whole time. It was like hopping from roof to roof, just eyeing this dog.
Oh my god.
Yeah, never ended up doing anything. Well, anyways, all right. So my first story, is titled "Wendigo Hill," from the Wendigo Stories subreddit. This is from 4 years ago by user Parzival77, and this is the only post they've ever made.
Good.
Let's see. The following account is 100% truthful and took place at 3 a.m. on October 31st, 2020. Okay, right off the bat, the witching hour on Halloween. Sure, all right. My friends and I always go on walks together past midnight. In the woods, along the roads, anything. Usually we have 4 people, but this time Ben, the guy whose house we were staying at, could have 6 people over. So the 6 of us walked along the road to this Verizon tower on this hill. The stars look very nice up there at night, so we always do it. We get halfway up the hill, and we're feeling uneasy. It's a full moon on Halloween, after all. There's another full moon, too. All right. Nick, the oldest and most stoic out of us, the one who never jokes about or believes in the paranormal or anything, points his flashlight ahead on the trail. What the fuck is that? He rarely swears, so this was another attention-grabbing thing. We all stop and look ahead. About 20 paces ahead of us, there it was, 8 feet tall, white as snow, a skin and bone, lanky, bipedal being within a stone's throw. 6 people all saw this at the same time. It takes off into the woods at superhuman speed. We stop and are silent for a moment. We immediately start asking if everyone saw it, and everyone did. We argue and cuss and try my hardest to convince the others to turn back and forget. But fearless Ben, who doesn't believe in anything, begs to push on. That's another thing. I think at the beginning of the story, they said Nick was the one who didn't believe in anything.
Yeah, who's Ben?
Ben is the guy whose house they're all staying at.
Okay.
Push on. So we do. Now, I've cut down a lot of trees in my day, so I know what it sounds like when one falls. The continuation of our voyage, less than a minute later, a tree slams to the ground on the side of the trail. It didn't fall, it was pulled down with force. We stop and argue. We push on. A minute after that, we hear a rustle and a loud, painful chirp from a bird. We make it to the tower and look around us. The top of the hill is mostly devoid of trees, so we look down at the path where it ran. Ben is still trying to convince us he isn't afraid. We decide to run the half-mile back down to his house. We get there, and Ben starts crying. He's never ever believed in anything his whole life, but he saw something up there. We all saw something up there. I still see it sometimes when I close my eyes. We've gone back up there, but we haven't seen anything. I've done a lot of research into it. I have no doubt in my mind it was a Wendigo. End of story. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that one that I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, it
sure.
does seem carefully tailored.
Yeah, and like the vocabulary they use is kind of, maybe they just want their post to be good and stuff, but it just doesn't seem like, it just seems way too tailored. The whole Halloween, witching hour, full moon, the fact that they switch from one guy being the non-believer to the other guy, it's a little messy, but this was honestly one of the better stories I could find.
So, one of my favorite things is this guy cuts down trees all day. He knows what a tree sounds like. Also, doesn't cuss a lot, which is, in my opinion, a weird combination.
So like being a lumberjack and also
a prude.
What?
What?
So that was another thing in this story. He's like, I cut trees down all the time, so I know what it sounds like when one falls. What is the difference in sound between one being pulled down and one just falling over? I imagine the gravity is roughly the same.
I don't know. Also, why would this assuming the tree fell because of, this alleged Wendigo, why is it doing that? Why is it pulling down trees?
So, okay, I think there's a comment in this one. So I'm just going to go through the comments. There's only 8 comments. Most of them are pretty short. First comment, Ben would be the first to die in a horror movie.
Probably.
Second comment, yo, that was on my birthday. I'm going to skip the third comment for now because we'll get into that a little later. Next comment, I'm going through reading these stories and I'm noticing a pattern. Trees falling. These MFers like to knock down trees as either an intimidation tactic or an attack tactic. And then someone responded...
A tactic.
Yeah. The next comment just says, message me.
ASL.
And then the last comment says, fuck Ben, arrogance kills. Trust your 5 senses and your intuition. It's all you have. Well, unless you're Ben. All right. So, I don't know. I guess maybe... trees falling is common in these stories.
I would have to do a little more research on that because I don't think that's true.
No, this is the only one I think I noticed that in.
Right. Okay. Man, even the comments are censored, which is so funny. Okay, so let's to the original story. There are aspects about it that are scary, and if they happened to me, would be scary.
Okay, my biggest thing is the second you see something like that and all 6 people saw it, you don't just keep following the one guy.
No.
You just go straight back home.
You let him die.
Yeah.
No matter if it's Nick or Ben.
There's 5 other people. You just constrain him and take him back home. Man.
I say 8 feet tall. That's another thing about these stories is, I don't know, maybe this is me. I'm not great at determining the height of something, especially a living thing, at any distance. But Is it on all fours? Does it say? It says bipedal, so I guess not.
No. Yeah, it's just standing there, and I think it runs off.
8 feet tall, white as snow, a skin and bone, lanky bipedal being within a stone's throw. I could throw a stone pretty far.
Yeah.
6 people all saw it at the same time. I think a mob mentality might make me braver if 5 other people were like, that was nothing, let's go. And I'd be like, okay, maybe I'm an idiot. But if 6 people saw this exact description, no, that is shared trauma, and we're gonna die with this as a secret. Like, there's no way we're revisiting this.
See, I remember, man, this show is going to bring up a lot of memories. But when I was in Florida, one time a bunch of friends ventured into the woods, and it was like after a storm, so a lot of it was flooded, and we were trying to avoid, having to go back over any water, because at one point I stepped on a log to cross like a little thing of water, and a water moccasin jumped at me. So we were like, okay, we're not going back that way. And as we continued to find another way out, we kept hearing a gator. They make like a noise. I can't really describe it, but it's just to kind of warn you that you're like near their nest. And so we just kept venturing further into the woods to avoid the scary crap. It wasn't like we were like, oh, well, let's just ignore that and keep going this way. So I don't know. I personally, I wouldn't have kept going, but I assume most of these stories are written by white people. So
I'm trying to think of an instance where I've had to put my gut, like my instincts on the line. I used to, like I said, I come from a family of hunters. So like when you're out there, there's this very specific sound that you listen for. Wild hogs are rampant and they are viciously violent.
Yeah.
You like, even if you have guns, and if there's more than however many bullets you have, you don't fuck with that.
That's
if
how
you hear something that kind of sounds like a boar, you climb a tree. That's it.
Yeah,
you don't think about it. You don't talk about it. You climb a fucking tree.
That's how my uncle lost a finger. So.
Yeah, it's not like I'll ignore that sound for now, and I don't know, push my luck.
Nah, just
no.
If you see something or hear something, just avoid it. That's how you live longer.
Fear is one of the most important things within evolution as we know it. Fear keeps us from eating berries that don't look right. It keeps us from investigating creepy noises from down the hall. The list goes on forever. But trust yourself.
Like that last comment said, man, trust your 5 senses and book it. So do we want to move on to your next story?
We certainly can.
Oh.
Mine.
The title of this one.
Another story from 5 years ago from Wendigo Boy. Wendigo Boy on r/Wendigo.
He also misspells Wendigo in the title.
Yes.
So read it verbatim.
I will. This story is called Wedigo in my shed. It begins thusly. So, to let you all know, I live in Canada, and I've seen drunk people and bears. But what I saw was neither. Can I say, just like off the record, what? How do you begin a post like this?
I think he's trying to avoid the whole like it's a bear or a drunk guy. So.
Oh, I didn't connect that at all. I thought he was like, fun fact, I live in Canada, so there's drunk people and bears.
That's like all of Canada.
Okay, I'll read it that way then. So to let you all know, I live in Canada, and I've seen drunk people and bears, but what I saw was neither. I had just got in my bed and started to doze of, but then I heard something scream. It was like if you were to run a sharp piece of metal on a chalkboard while screaming in a slimy, pitched voice. What? It scared me so bad, I jumped out of bed, shocked. I looked out of the window, and what I saw was terrifying. I saw the shadow of a head like a deer with antlers and a tall, thin body in my shed. I grabbed a flashlight and pointed it. And this thing... What? I pointed it and this thing. Oh, at this thing. I see. Bad idea. When the light hit it, looked at me for about 20 seconds, but it felt like hours. I could make out more of its body now, and it looked so rotten. It looked more like a walking body instead of a working animal, if you could call it that. After a good stare-off, it ran back into the forest. All I could see was a blur. I have had more incidents with it, but this was the scariest by far. End of story.
Okay. So, no shed in that story.
No, there was. Hold on. It's terrifying. I saw the shadow of a head like a deer with antlers and a tall, thin body in my shed.
Wait, hold on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was in his shed. So, how did you see it then?
Maybe the door was open. I don't use your imagination.
Fair. I mean, that still could have been a drunk guy wearing a deer skull or something, you know?
Yeah.
Or a bear wearing a deer skull, you know?
Or you in the future wearing a deer skull to scare you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back in time 5 years just to scare this guy in his shed.
That's what this podcast should be about, is your ability to go back in time.
Yeah.
And give us content.
Yeah, maybe a future episode.
So some of the comments in here are pretty good. It's sheed now. Because that's not spelled correctly. This person says, not a Wendigo. Those don't have antlers. Unless it thought it be confused with another folktale cryptid, was funny and duct taped them on. The modernized version is actually a Wachugi. I don't think I'm allowed to say that word. They can be killed with fire, by the way. Hey, what?
Hold on. Let me look up this guy's. Yes, I'm over 18.
No.
Let's see, posts. Yeah, not a whole lot here on this guy's page, so I guess I trust his advice. His little Reddit character is also like wearing a fedora, so I don't know how much I trust this guy.
My lady. That was a Wachugi, my lady. So I've had to look up this as well. Is a man-eating creature or evil spirit appearing in the legends of Athabascan people. In Greek mythology, it is said to be a person who has been possessed or overwhelmed by the power of one to the ancient giant spirit animals. Okay. It's a spirit animal possession. I'm going to leave it there for now, unless we want to do an episode about one later. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't really explain what's in the guy's shed either.
I really like they can be killed with fire, by the way.
Yeah. And then the next one, the next comment under that, it just says, if it goes into your shed again, burn it. You know, actually, I just watched the John Carpenter's The Thing for the first time.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how they burn the creature every time they come in contact with it. Because most movies, it's like, burn it. But in this movie, they literally do every single time, and it doesn't keep it from spreading. But yeah, if you just see something you don't understand, burn it. Flamethrowers are pretty easy to get nowadays.
Pretty accessible flamethrowers. It's so funny. The phrase, it can be killed with fire, that's everything, right? Except for the thing. But like, I don't know, to say like fire is its weakness, yeah, duh.
Well, the thing does die by fire, but...
So, I'm still not wrong.
Yeah, this is a really short one, too, because, man, a lot of these stories, I had to scroll so much. I didn't read them. I would click on one, and if it took more than 2 scrolls to get through, I was like, no way.
Yeah, and that's plenty of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure those are better than these stories, but... We have a time constraint, so...
Yeah, like, we got a show to do.
All right, so let's move on to my next one, and then we can discuss
I do have some
aspects.
Ask X to do, so after we do this next one, we'll work on that.
Well, luckily, my next story also has this recurring comment on it, so we can
good.
cover that a little bit, too. So my next story is from the Paranormal Encounters subreddit by
Okay.
PP Wiz. This was
Say it
from
again?
PP Wiz. is the guy's username. This one's from 5 months ago, so a lot more recent.
Okay.
And it's titled, I got hunted by a Wendigo. Maybe. I don't know what it was. This was a few years ago, so I guess not very recent. So me, a 13 male, and my cousin, 15 male, were in my grandma's backyard having a fire. We had some family over, but they all left around 10 p.m., except my cousin, so it was just me and him back there with only the light from the fire. Around 1 a.m., so they hung out there for 3 hours. Around 1 a.m., we heard a screech come from far back in the woods, sounded about a mile away. We thought it was just an animal being killed or something. Then we heard another screech closer this time. We still shrugged it off as an animal. But then we heard a third screech, closely followed by my name, Sean, not his real name, being said in a female's voice. It sounded like my aunt. And at this point, we were scared, but stayed because we weren't allowed inside because of COVID. So we stayed and we kept hearing footsteps in the woods, cracking branches, etc. We hear another screech, and it's at the forest line this time, so we're freaking out. Then everything went silent for about 2 minutes. We just sat there, scared out of our minds. Then, just out of the light of the fire, we hear big branches snap from our wood pile, and to our horror, we hear Sean, my name, 10 feet away from us, and we saw a 10-foot tall, skinny, white creature with no face. We saw that, and it was an instant fight or flight. We ran as fast as we could inside. I don't think it chased us. We got in the house safe, didn't care about COVID at that point, but now I never go in the woods by myself, even with people. It feels like I'm being watched or followed. That's the end of the story. He ends it thanking people for reading and asking for insight and stuff. This story was a little creepier. It wasn't as much as like a kind of taking aspects of stories he's heard before. He does admit in the title he's not sure if it's a Wendigo, and I guess it could be like anything from the description and the story.
The comments give a lot of insight as to what it could be.
Yeah, there's one comment that keeps popping up on all of these, not just not a Wendigo, but people keep linking to the subreddit crawler sightings, which if you go, yeah, it's like a weird white creature. Let's see.
We're not talking about a Taylor Swift fan. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's see. Last time I clicked on this thing, it was mostly just, like illustrations and stuff. It's a very unsettling looking thing, but I guess
it's not a great thing to look at. But it has a face.
Oh, does it? Most of the images I see don't.
Oh, sorry. I am thinking of the rake. Or a rake.
Yeah, because there's another comment that also says that. Yeah, that sounds like a rake to me. I've heard mimics tons of times, but never seen one. But yeah, almost every single story that we cover today has a link to crawler sightings. So I think it's mostly people just being like, hey, this would probably be more likely. I don't know if I believe in either, but we've used the word Wendigo a lot, so maybe we'll find out soon.
Look, if we uploaded another episode, we're in the clear.
Yeah. Our episode did get interrupted earlier.
It did, yeah. People probably aren't going to know about that, but we did have to do the recording again.
It could be an omen. Let's see. A few other comments. Were you guys whistling at night? Or perhaps being perceived in any way that was disrespectful? I know it might sound odd, but there's a lot of native lore surrounding different entities and devils. The OP just says, I don't remember. Whistling was a pretty common thing I saw, but that's more of a skinwalker, right?
Is it? I mean, I don't know.
Every skinwalker story that I looked up, someone mentions whistling, so I guess so. I don't know, these aren't really things that I just like Google on my free time, and I seen like the History Channel documentaries and stuff on it, but I don't remember them very well. There was even an Unsolved Mysteries episode on it. There was a very recent show that came out about paranormal true crime mysteries, like paranormal stories connected to actual true crime cases, and one had to do with skinwalkers. So I mean, yeah, I've seen that recently, but I don't remember anything about whistling. Let's see. There's a really long story on for the first comment here. I think I tried reading it.
Quite extensive.
Let me try giving it a read.
Yeah.
Met the same creature with my then boyfriend about 15 years ago at age 15. We parked in a dark roadway into the forest so we could have a smoke on the way to a party. The figure appeared in the headlights way ahead, super tall and white, very, very bright white, and skinny. We looked at each other, turned off the headlights. Why would you do that? Turned off the headlights. It was still there. Turned them back on, and it was gone. Wait, so how would you know it was... Okay.
I closed my eyes. The room was dark.
3 seconds later, it appeared again, but closer, with the same weird animal sound you explained. Its head was pointy and long. It's like it vanished and then reappeared closer without walking. Very odd how it moved. You didn't see it move. Him and I were just frozen and mumbling when he was trying to start his car. I mean, I guess it could have just been like twitching or something, but you literally said you didn't see it come towards you. So, okay. So they tried to start the car. It just wouldn't start. And I began screaming at that point because it was absolute frozen air all around. Yet it was summer night and 30 Celsius. Very hot. The thing we saw was 100% not human, and that's why I was screaming. It seemed like we were trespassing in its space. Then boom, the brightest light I've ever seen in my life appeared and made a high-pitched crack sound, and the thing appeared literally coming in his windshield. Ooh. Passing into us in a very slow motion, yet crazy fast blast of air. All the rope lights started blinking on his subs and speakers. The wipers were going, dash lights flashing in and off too, but the engine was dead. It took a few minutes before we could move. We eventually got the car started, but we couldn't even speak. It was shock the whole night. Everyone kept telling us we looked like we saw a horror scene and to chill out. Okay. Never ever found out what that was in the forest.
This person just had a story and was like, I'll comment.
Yeah, let me just say, this was a more interesting story in my opinion.
It definitely got really good at the end.
Yeah. Can you imagine seeing, like, forget this thing. You didn't see a monster or anything, but you saw, like a horrific car crash in it. It just scarred you. And then everyone you see that night, you have, like, the 1,000-yard stare, and they're just like, man, you look like you just saw a horror scene. Chill out, dude.
Have you tried just relaxing a bit?
Yeah, have you tried not being a bummer?
Everyone else is like smoking.
Oh, man.
You know, we're trying to enjoy John Wick 3, and that's hard. So, like...
Oh, so that's another thing. I didn't mind John Wick 3.
It was the weakest, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, another thing, like, looking up all these stories, I was kind of, like, rolling my eyes every time I'd come across one because they just seem so obviously fake, either, like, super tailored to fit the legends, or there was an aspect of the story that I was like, come on, man. So this person with the story of being in the car with her boyfriend, they literally say they're having a smoke, and I have to imagine that was the old Mary Jane. So that could have maybe played a factor in it, because there's another story that I came across that was like, it literally started with, so me and my friends were chilling on my porch smoking a blunt, and I'm like, okay, man, that kind of like discredits your story just a little bit, because there's
only a little
some
bit.
outside influence, right?
Right. Here's what I'll say about imbibing in that substance is that in the few times that I ever have, even with edibles, I've never experienced anything like this.
Like, even the slight paranoia that I might have felt on weed or edibles or whatever, it's not to this level. Like, I've had very uncomfortable trips, but it's just uncomfortable. Like, my body feels uncomfortable. I've never hallucinated or thought I saw something, but everybody's different. You never know. A 15-year-old might not have that great of a tolerance. Let's see if there's one more comment here. I'll see if... So he quotes part of the actual story. We saw a 10-foot tall, skinny white creature with no face. This person commented, odd. Could you describe the no face? Yeah, there was no face. Was it like its face was ripped off, revealing flesh and bone? God. Flesh and bone? Was it blanked over like Slender Man, or could it have lacked certain features but still have eyes and a mouth? Because Wendigos, both in mythology and reported sightings nowadays, usually are described as having faces. If you can call a disheveled, somewhat rotting head a face, fair. Also, what state were you in?
A state of panic.
Happened? This person was in Minnesota. And I'm not very sure if it did or didn't have facial features like eyes, mouth, etc. We didn't stay very long to find out. We ran the moment we saw it. The person replied to that, well, this is pretty close to Canada. Basically the origins of the Wendigo. Sure. As far as what the creature is, I guess it could have been a Wendigo. After all, the description you gave seems to fit with the height, slim body, and pale skin, and the usage of voice mimicry. Who knows? Maybe the Wendigo tried luring you in, but when you didn't go into the woods, it got impatient and came to you. And the OP just responds, thanks for the explanation.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Not a whole lot of engagement on this one, and he just seems to be cutting the conversation short. I mean, all these stories are truly creepy. I wouldn't want to be in any of them. But again, these were the most believable ones of the ones I found. And even they aren't all that convincing to me personally.
I will be happy to move on from this and go to like orbs. Yeah.
Or I really want to do an episode on disembodied voices because I think those can have the funniest explanations. So maybe that'll be next week. But okay, I guess that's it for the stories. Do you want to move on to your next segment?
Yeah, I don't have any what am I looking at for this episode, which seems surprising because you could look up like trail cam Wendigo footage all day.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of CCTV of it, so...
Yeah, and what you can find out there is truly just unsettling, and I don't think I want to look at it. So.
No, it's not fun, right? Can't have fun with that. So we are going to move on to Ask Mr. X. I'm gonna say I have gone to Ask Reddit and I have typed in the word Wendigo, and these are some of the things that came up. Now I will say a lot of these results had to do with dreams for some reason. Wendigo dreams, which I guess is like an omen thing. I didn't look into it that much. But here's ones that I found to be the most interesting. Number 1, Mr. X, whenever you're ready.
Okay. If a vegan turned into a Wendigo, will it eat meat or not? And why? I don't... So, they're cannibals, right? That's what they're supposed to be.
So okay, well, it's just to kind of lean into the mythology here, it's not necessarily that they are cannibals, but they were forced into cannibalism. Right? Like if a vegan was out in the wilderness, they get lost, them and their partner are struggling to survive, at this point they'll eat anything. Tofu.
So I think at that point they would probably just try hunting, right?
I guess so.
But no, I don't know. It would probably just be an even skinnier one.
I
have no idea.
Emaciation.
It was, vegans, the thought of veganism would imply that they're more conscientious, right? They're willing to put the feelings of other beings before their own. They don't want to harm people and stuff.
Right.
But have you ever met a vegan? Most of them are pretty insufferable. So I would imagine if it was a truly decent person who turned into a Wendigo, they'd probably eat themselves first. You'd probably go around, you'd see an armless, legless thing just flopping through the woods. But actual vegans, they would probably just start eating meat. Although, I want to say, how many of these stories actually end with someone being eaten?
That's
Not
true.
much.
A lot of the Wendigos that they see are just like, hey, what's up? I was looking for a shovel in your shed. You got a snow shovel? That's pretty cool. But I'm looking for more of a post hole digger, and you don't got that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the road.
And I have to imagine, because a lot of these stories we read don't seem like the brightest of people. No offense, but these guys got away. So how many people are these creatures actually luring in and eating?
All the stories also
argue.
They feature these creatures are like lightning fast, like superhuman fast.
Yeah,
but
they don't grab you. They have
deadly,
to lure you
I
in.
guess.
Yeah, and you can argue for sure that the people who got eaten can't tell the story, but anyways, moving on.
Okay, second question. Here we go.
Bigfoot versus Skinwalker. Who wins in a bare knuckle brawl? So that was another thing. A lot of these, the Wendigo subreddit and the Skinwalker subreddit, both for some reason feature a lot of videos about cryptids fighting other cryptids, and it's mostly Bigfoot fighting these other creatures. And I'm like, I don't know, man. They're both pretty elusive creatures. Bigfoot seems peaceful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bigfoot is a little creepy, and we will have an episode on Bigfoot and whatnot. But I remember, because like I said in the very first episode, I used to watch a lot of History Channel and like Monster Hunter and stuff. And one aspect of Bigfoot that I did not know about until I watched that show was that they whoop in the dark in the forest.
Oh.
And it's
like juggalos. Is it?
Yes. Just like
if I'm in the woods and I hear whoop whoop, is that?
Yeah. It's either Bigfoot or
is that a gathering?
Well, you would be at one of those, wouldn't you?
The Great Malenko was a great album. I will die on that hill.
Dude, I tried listening to some of their music, and it's oh man. But no, like, I don't think you'd ever want to run into either of these creatures, but I don't think they would want to run into each other either, right? So I don't know. Bigfoot maybe, because he's not a pencil.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, this doesn't even say Wendigo, does it? Just a Skinwalker. That's on me. Yeah. That's my bad. Bigfoot's kind of got this like I'm too powerful to fight, right? Like, no one's gonna go up against me. I'll kill them, And I don't know, Wendigos seem kind of like the crack baby of cryptids. So
yes,
like, do you know what I mean? Like the mangy coyote that let's go. I'll take you on any day.
Yeah.
Bigfoot's just like, look, man, I just want to eat some berries. I'll break you in half, though.
Yeah, he seems like he'd win just by like swatting the thing off.
It's stop it. Like, smacks him on the head.
Yeah.
You're being really uncool. You need to chill.
All right, next question.
Last question we have here, and this is going to put me on a watch list, I think.
You didn't write it. This one just says, what does human meat taste like? It's from 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
It has 11 comments. I want to know what they are.
I should have got those comments. That sucks.
Well, now I gotta look up this person.
So, like, it's important to know that the suffering of a Wendigo, this person that has succumbed to this hunger that is so bad, you resort to cannibalism. You change into this awful, disgusting creature, and you are doomed to an endless and insatiable hunger, right? You're never gonna be satisfied with anything you eat, but you have to eat. So, I mean, but it does beg the question: does what you eat have to taste good? Is human flesh at all satisfactory?
Probably not raw. But then
I
again,
mean,
I am such a picky eater. Most of the time I don't like to think about eating meat because otherwise I'd be too grossed out. But I chicken and beef are like the only things that I can ever like I guess crave or stomach for the most part. Like pork and all this other stuff, no thanks. Especially when you get into like lamb and duck and all that. Like, I'm just not interested. So human meat, I think I'd rather eat dirt before I succumb to cannibalism.
Wait,
or my boots.
my meal is a fried boot.
Yeah.
Is that our first SpongeBob reference on this podcast?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Probably like the third or fourth. I looked up the guy who posted that question. Okay, particular 6401. Yeah, I'm calling you out.
Yeah, what's up?
They've since deleted it because they have no post. But their screen name, apart from their tag, is Sus Piggy, which kind of explains a lot.
Sus Piggy. Hold on, I do want to see if I could find this again.
You have to go to Ask Reddit and just put in human meat.
Yeah, I mean that's what I have to do. Hey, it also occurred to me, and like this is kind of embarrassing, but Reddit is like a past tense of someone who just read something. They read it.
Oh yeah.
It didn't occur to me until this week.
So there are a lot of these. So many people ask this
Holy
question.
Shit.
There's one with like 55 comments. It has 3 upvotes for some reason. And it doesn't tell me who the user is on desktop for some reason. So this is a different person, but the comments include, apparently tastes like pork. Makes sense. You think about it.
Is that why they call human meat long pig?
I've never heard that, but one of the next comments is slang term for human meat is long pork.
Oh.
So probably.
Yeah.
Well, they say is long pork, so probably tastes like chicken. This other guy says, "Nice try, FBI." Okay, we've gone way off topic here,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
All right. I think we should go ahead and wrap up on the cannibalism.
Probably for the best. We'll have to
All right.
revisit in many other episodes, I'm sure.
And we'll more than likely come back to this theme at some point. So
yeah. Well, all right. That's going to have to do it for this Windigo themed episode. If you have any supernatural stories of your own, you can submit them to us for this show on any of our socials at PairO'Dudes. That is PAIR_O_DUDES.
we've been a Paranormal Dudes. Ever in need of stories to intrigue, perplex, maybe even frighten. So remember, if you can't explain it, post about it. And until next time, stay tuned and stay haunted.